9 in the Maimer Gal Einai. But we'll first close up a little bit of what we've read in chapter 8 because we rushed through the ending of it the other day and didn't have a chance to read two footnotes. So we'll get to that in a second. So what we've said till now is that Lag BaOmer signifies as the day of the giving of the Torah of the inner dimension of Torah, signifies just as Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah, broke the barrier between heaven and earth. So the same thing is true with regard to the giving of the Torah of Pnimius HaTorah, of the inner dimension of Torah, that it also symbolizes a breaking of the barrier between heaven and earth, or specifically between the inner dimension of Torah and the outer dimension of Torah. And we explain that the ultimate purpose of the breaking of the barrier between heaven and earth, between creator and creation, is that the creation, that man should be able to come to see godliness in his own state, in his own condition. In other words, when we break the barrier, two things happen. God comes down to earth, which automatically elevates the status, the stature of the creation, the fact that God is down here in this world. And the other side of it is that man ascends, man becomes more sensitive, man becomes more attuned to godliness in his own condition. These two components are both what happens, what occurs with the breaking of the barrier. But what's the ultimate purpose? The ultimate purpose is the ascent of man. Why? Because since we said that God desires a home in this world, in the physical world, he wants to dwell in the lowest realm. So what does that mean that he's where is the lowest realm? The lowest realm is the human condition. The place where we can acknowledge God or choose to deny God. That's the lowest realm. So if God reveals himself to us, so then it overwhelms it. You see him, you can't deny. So if you can't deny, so that's not the lowest place. But could you say that there's a place where God could be denied, and even within that space is acknowledged, even in that space can be home? So for that, the only way to achieve that is man rising, that the human being, in his own humanness, in his own condition, should be able to perceive godliness. So the ascent of man is the ultimate purpose of God having a home in this world. That's why we said that the pasuk Gal Einai, the title of our discourse, in the verse he says, revealed to me, open my eyes. Rather than reveal your secrets to me, we're asking God to open our eyes. Why? Because we want to be able to see the deepest secrets of godliness, the deepest secrets of Torah. We want to be able to see them with our own eyes. Not that they be revealed to us in a way that supersedes our condition, but we should be able to see it within our own experience. And that's one aspect. Another one is that we ask not only that he open our eyes, but that he revealed to us the secrets from his Torah. What does that mean from his Torah? So we said that it means being able to see the secrets with our own eyes, but also seeing them within the revealed part of Torah. Because just as we said that the purpose of the human of creation is that the human being should come to perceive God within his own experience, the same is true within Torah. That there's the body and the garments of Torah, the stories of the garments, the legal aspect of Torah would be the body, and then you have the secrets of Torah, the soul of Torah, and there are two. You have two levels: the soul and the soul of the soul. So when we say that we want to see the secrets of Torah, so again, it's not just that the secrets should be revealed, but that the secrets are seen and found through the body of Torah. Which again, just as the human being should see godliness from the human experience, seeing the secrets of Torah within the revealed part of Torah, that's the same concept. And that's the meaning of the verse Gal Einai, which has an obvious connection to Lag BaOmer. The purpose, the function of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, what was he trying to achieve, is the breaking of this barrier and revealing the most esoteric within the exoteric, within creation. Okay, and within the simple meaning in Torah, so that you find the deepest concepts within it. Then we went on to say that the same is true with regard to mitzvahs. Why does the Tzemach Tzedek talk about mitzvahs? Because again, we're emphasizing this point that the main thing is that the human being should rise, the human being should experience, should be sensitive, should be open to these experiences, as we explained there. So that was all explaining our verse Gal Einai. But remember, we said in the beginning that the connection of Gal Einai with Lag BaOmer, the Rebbe Marash learns it he bases it on the connection of Lag BaOmer, the allusion to Lag BaOmer in the verse Eid Hagal Hazeh, that this mound bears witness. So we've been explaining Gal Einai in that connection, which seemed on the surface obvious, and then we went a little deeper and explained the deeper meaning of it, etc. And went through every part of the verse to explain the meaning and the deep connection. But what about Eida Gal Hazeh? What about that verse? And what's the connection between that verse, which is a conversation between Lavan and Yaakov, a pact that they make, that one won't cross that barrier, that mound, that gal? What's that connection with Lag BaOmer? So we said, now that we've explained that the purpose of Lag BaOmer is to bridge the gap between the two, is to tear down the separation between them, not only to tear it down, but that you should be able to come to the deepest parts, the deepest secrets, the deepest dimension of Torah through the revealed part of Torah. So in a sense, sort of merging them. So now we can understand how it's alluded to in the verse Eida Gal Hazeh. What's the purpose of Eida Gal Hazeh? So we said that the gal, this barrier between Lavan and Yaakov that they erected, symbolizes, in the spiritual level, symbolizes the separation between Atzilus and this world, and Atzilus and beyond Atzilus. And we discussed a brief in the last class what this means. There's within creation you have the four worlds. Each of the four worlds, beginning with the highest world of Atzilus. The question is what's manifest, what's expressed. Atzilus is different than the other three, than the lower three, and that Atzilus, what's felt there is creator, not creation. Even though on the one hand it's called a world, but in comparison to the lower worlds, it's all one with the creator. There's no feeling of created identity. It doesn't have that identity. So therefore, there's what Chassidus calls a parsa. It's called in Kabbalah a separation between Atzilus and the lower worlds. They're fundamentally different. But in addition to that, there's also a parsa. There's a separation, a partition between Atzilus and beyond Atzilus. Beyond Atzilus means beyond creation. And there too, because even with Atzilus, in comparison to the lower worlds, is totally one with God. But in comparison to what's beyond it, we call it a world. So there's a separation, a partition there as well. Lavan and Yaakov. Yaakov corresponds to the world of Atzilus. And Lavan, you have the two polar opposites of Lavan, two extremes. You have Lavan in his highest source, which represents a level of godliness beyond Atzilus, beyond creation. And then you have Lavan, the way he comes down within creation, all the way down to Lavan as he was a living being. Yaakov's father in this world, he was Lavan, a swindler, a con man. So the lowest, most corrupt form. So when we say that there's a separation between Yaakov and Lavan, what are we talking about? We're talking about actually two separations. The separation from the higher Lavan, beyond creation, with Atzilus, and then the separation between Atzilus and the lower Lavan. The Lavan that is a common, the Lavan that does feel his own existence, his own identity. And so when we talk about the Eida Gal Hazeh, what was the point of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? So this partition between heaven and earth, which is plays out in the narrative of Lavan and Yaakov, that's what we're talking about, taking down, tearing down that separation. Now, what happens when you tear down the separation? Just as we said in the verse Gal Einai v'abit neflois m'teresecha, that we want to see the neflois in the plural, meaning the soul and the soul of the soul. So we want to see the mystical dimension, and then the higher level within the mystical dimension. And where do we want to see it in Teresecha? Within the revealed part of Torah. So it's the same idea here. When we say that we're tearing down the wall between higher Lavan and Atzilus and lower Lavan and Atzilus, essentially what we're saying is that in Asiya, in the lowest world, in our world, in our reality, we should have revealed both Atzilus, which would correspond to the soul of Torah, and we want to have beyond Atzilus. If we're tearing down both of those walls, so then it shines all the way through. And what's apparent in this world, not only Atzilus, the soul, or similar to the soul of Torah, but also higher than Atzilus, which would we compared to what we said before, the soul of the soul. So now we see a connection between the verse Eida Gal Hazeh and Lag BaOmer. And again, we're saying we want to be able to see it even in the lowest level of Torah. So let's just finish off note 43 and note 44. The footnotes on chapter 8, and then we'll move on to chapter 9. Note 43, where we said that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's function was to take down this wall. So if you look in note 43, this concept is discussed in the Rebbe Marash's Maimer, that in the series that this Maimer is based on, from among that series, where he says that Shezeu al derech inyan machatzti vani erpa sheyeh la'asud lavei. That this idea of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai tearing down that barrier is similar to what is said about what will happen when Mashiach comes, where we'll have machatzti vani erpa. The verse in Hazinu says, machatzti, I injure or I harm or kill, vani erpa, and I heal. That God both inflicts the suffering, but also heals the suffering. So machatzti comes from the term injuring or harming. Vani erpa, and I will heal. But the Medrash says, Kahelis Rabbah, says like this, that machatzti vani erpa doesn't say machatzti. It translates machatzti not as injury, as harming, but machatzti from the word mechitza, barrier. That when Mashiach, the Medrash says, when Mashiach comes, machatzti vani erpa, I will heal. I will remove the mechitza, the barrier between heaven and earth. So there's a barrier between heaven and earth, and I will remove that barrier. So that'll be when Mashiach comes. So that's already how you see Rashbi, the idea of revealing Primus HaTorah relates to La'asalavi, to the taking down of that barrier. Okay. Note 44. Here he says that we want to be able to, that the barrier is taken down to the extent that you can perceive the deepest secrets of Torah, the deepest dimension from the lowest level, even Sipurim, even stories of Torah, which is Asiyah. We're contrasting Atzilus and Bri Yitzir Asiyah. So we said Asiyah, the lowest of worlds, the world of action, the world of action. So we're the lowest level of Asiyah, that's the stories of Torah. That even in the stories of Torah you should be able to see the secrets. Why are stories of Torah compared to action? So note 44, he says like this, Re'ei lokot Torah vayikra mipnei Eitz Chaim, shetalmud u'mishnah hem bebrio b'yitzira. That when we talk about the study of Torah, Nigla, the outer dimension of Torah, so Talmud and Mishnah are in the worlds, correspond to the worlds of Bria and Yitzira. And Mikra hu b'asiyah. But Bible verses, the written Torah, that is in the world of Asiyah, the lowest level. And there he explains, that the stories in Torah are things that were not given to be understood in logically, and therefore they're expressed in the form of story. Why? So why is Mikra called Asiyah? In other words, we should be able to see the deepest dimension of Torah even within a verse in the Torah, and not only in a verse in Torah, but even in a story in the Torah. So he says like this, because we know when it comes to Torah study, you have to make a blessing. It's a mitzvah to study Torah. You're required to make a blessing before you study Torah. Now, if you open up a page of the Talmud and you start reading and you don't understand the word you're saying, so you haven't studied, and that doesn't even require a blessing beforehand, because to study a page of Talmud or law, you need to any part of the oral tradition requires understanding. If you don't understand, it's not studying. The exception is a reading a verse in the Torah. When you're reading the written Torah, when you're reading Chumash or anywhere in Tanakh, even if you don't understand it, just reading the words, you're already fulfilling the mitzvah. You get up to the Torah, you have to make a blessing. Somebody gets called to the Torah, gets an aliyah, doesn't understand what they read, but he begins by making a blessing. Why? Because the written Torah, the Bible, but let's not get into why, the nature of the energy, the divine energy in it, that's a different topic. Point is that even without understanding it, you fulfill the mitzvah. So we see that Torah Shebiksav, the written law, relates the understanding is not as vital and critical, and therefore that represents asiyah, action, which is something that is divorced from your intellect. Obviously, your intelligence should motivate and inform and instruct and guide your action, but the action itself is not intelligent; it's action. So that's why studying Tanakh, studying a verse in the Torah, that would correspond to action, the world of asiyah, and within the written Torah, which one expresses the lowest level of asiyah, the lowest level of action, the things that weren't even given as a thought, but as an anecdote, a story, a metaphor. So therefore, that represents the lowest level of asiyah. Okay, so now chapter 9. So we've explained the connection between Gal Einai and Lag BaOmer. We've explained the connection between Eida Gal Hazeh and Lag BaOmer, but there's a question that still remains that we haven't addressed. And that is, remember right in the beginning we said that the Rebbe Marash learns that Gal Einai is connected to Lag BaOmer based on the fact that the Alter Rebbe says that Eida Gal Hazeh is connected to Lag BaOmer. He says based on what the Alter Rebbe says that Eida Gal Hazeh is an allusion to Lag BaOmer, so we can say that Gal Einai is also an allusion to Lag BaOmer. So fine. So we've explained how both of them are connected to Lag BaOmer. But why is it that the Gal Einai allusion to Lag BaOmer comes as a result of Eida Gal Hazeh being an allusion to Lag BaOmer? In other words, we said it's not just when we say that you learn one thing from another. It's not just that's the way it is, that we know something, so now we know it because we learned one from the other. But if in the Torah it says that if in Torah we learn one thing from another, it also means that that's how it goes. It's based on it. Something could be learned from something else because it comes as a result of it. That after you have thing A, concept A, you can arrive at concept B. But concept B is not just learned from it that we get that information, but actually it's based on it. That's the foundation for B is A. So we're saying the same thing here. If the Rebbe Marash is learning Gal Einai from Eida Gal Hazeh, so it must mean that the foundation is Eida Gal Hazeh. And it's only after we know that Eida Gal Hazeh is connected to Lag BaOmer that we can then say that Gal Einai is also Lag BaOmer. So we didn't explain how that works yet. That's what we're going to get into now. And to answer that, to address that, the Rebbe prefaces it with another question, which is, good, we just finished explaining how Eida Gal Hazeh, in our review of chapter 8, how Eida Gal Hazeh is connected to Lag BaOmer. But what's the point of Lag BaOmer? What are we saying the point is? The point is breaking down the barrier. Like we just quoted in note 43, Mechatzti Vanierpa, the taking down of the barrier. But in the verse Eida Gal Hazeh, what are we talking about? We're talking about putting up a barrier. Right? So fine, you could say it's an illusion, but we know everything is significant in Torah, especially the way the Rebbe is teaching us in this Maimer, that every detail you find the deepest concepts embedded in the simple text. So it's not just that it's an allusion to Lag BaOmer. That this is talking about a gal and a wall, and we learn from building a wall about tearing down a wall. If we're learning about tearing down a wall from the building of the wall, there has to be a connection there too. So why is it that we're learning about tearing down the wall that's expressed in Lag BaOmer, tearing down the wall beyond from the secrets of Torah, the soul of Torah, with the body of Torah? Why are we learning that from a verse that's discussing building a wall, putting up a gal? So the Rebbe will explain that even the putting up of this wall, in this narrative, the story of Yaakov and Lavan, the point what they're doing is they're building something with the intent of it coming down, which is why they put up they put together a mound of stones rather than build a wall. If you want to say that we're going to have a separation between us, we're not going to cross, so you build a wall. I mean, that's what we're doing? You build a wall. That's how you keep people from going from one side to the other. But what's putting up a little pile of stones? How's that going to help? So obviously, the putting up the pile of stones to create a separation. What's the point of it? Is actually to be able to cross. How does that relate to Lag BaOmer? So we'll get into it. But let's take a look. Chapter 9. Based on what we know, it's known that everything in Torah is with the ultimate precision. Tzarich loymar dezeh shapasuk Eida Gal Hazeh shemdaber bin Yagal v'amechitza shebein Lavan leYaakov miramez al Lag BaOmer shenyanu bir Yagal v'amechitza. So we must say that the fact that we learn about the tearing down of the mechitza, which is what Lag BaOmer is all about, tearing down a wall, we learn it from the actual building of a wall, the Eida Gal Hazeh. Hokizeh shasimin ve'edus alani lo yaver elach v'gomer. Atolei saver elai gomer hoyesha asugal v'loy shasu chema. We can know based on the fact that when they were talking about not crossing paths, Lavan and Yaakov not going to each other, not crossing into each other's sides, they built a pile, they put together a pile of stones, a gal, rather than a mechitza, rather than a wall. Why? It's huleramez sha'asiyas ha-mechitza melachatchile ba'ofen sheyesh nesis makim sheyani ever elayich va'ata saver elay. Because the point of the wall was that the point of putting together a pot, making a little mound to separate between them was that ultimately we should be able to cross. So even though they're putting it together, saying that we shouldn't cross, but what's the ultimate goal? That eventually we do cross. And take a look at footnote 45. Re'egam look at the sichis. V'sham dezeh sheyesh nesinas makim sheyeh ever v'saver hisnu beferish b'adiber shalom bin yagal lo'saver gemel l'ra u'pirish sham avalata ever l'prakamatya. So if we open up the Chumash and we take a look at the conversation between Lavan and Yaakov, so Rashi quotes right there and says that when they said we're not going to cross to each other's sides. When are we not going to cross to each other's sides? L'ra, for evil, for a negative purpose. But for pragmatia, for business, we will. So for something positive, they will cross over. So we see that even though they built the separation, wasn't to keep each other out, but to limit, right, the interaction. Okay. What's the purpose of building this wall, of this separation, is so that afterwards they will actually be combined, connected. So if the whole point is that they should eventually come together, so why separate in the first place? So the reason is because as we've quoted before, what's the purpose of creation is that God dwell in the lowest world, which there's nothing lower, the lowest of the low. Which is why creation had to occur through a separation. There had to be a separation between heaven and earth. So that the separation is between them. There's so that there will be no going from one to the other. Note 47. Like the Medrash says, that in the metaphor brought in the Medrash that we quoted above between the separation between heaven and earth, it says the king was geyser, he decreed. There's a separate act of keeping them apart. In other words, if we're saying that God wants a dwelling in the lowest realm, what's the lowest realm mean? So you could have a creation, the God can could create the world where he's hidden. And there's two different things. There's heaven and there's earth. They're two separate things that don't have any connection. But could that be? Is that the lowest? Is that the lowest thing? That there's no connection between them, and then you're going to make a connection. The lowest would imply not only that there's no connection, but that there's actually a negative connection. Who does a person have less of a connection to? A stranger they don't know, or somebody who they have a restraining order out against? Now, obviously, if you want to get very technically say, if you have a restraining, I mean, there implies a connection. But again, that's actually part of the point we're trying to work at. But in terms of who are you more separate from, who do you have to be more distant from? Somebody there's a restraining order from. Somebody you don't know, you just don't know. So if we were talking about God having a dwelling in the lowest place, it's not just that God wants to be manifest in a place where there's no connection. There's a creation, doesn't perceive God, and now we reveal God. Fine. And that could even come from creation's own perspective, that's fine. But that's not the lowest. The lowest, as we talked about in the past, we mentioned, what's the idea that there's nothing lower than it? It means that there's something that can deny God. Something that could be resistant to God. Not something that doesn't know of God, but something that's resistant. Something that could deny him. That's the lowest. And for that, so how is that expressed? That's why God creates the world with a mechitza, with a separation, as if to say that I'm making a world, and I'm telling you there is no connection between us. He's putting up a wall between us. Not only that they're just two different things that have no connection, but there's a sort of a negative connection that you can't cross from one to the other. And what's the point? Is that and the point is that through our service, we get to undo that decree. We get to create a creation, something, a connection with something that's resistant to a connection. So that's how you have a home for God in the lowest realm. And that's why the lowest realm has to be created. Our world has to be created with a mechitza, with a boundary. That when God creates the world, he says there's a decree, heaven and earth don't mix. Which only underscores the idea that earth is the lowest and there's nothing lower. And the point is that we should be able to break that gap. So now we can understand why the allusion to Lag BaOmer is in the verse Eida Galazeh. We're talking about Lag BaOmer is about taking down a wall, and we're learning it from a verse that's talking about building a wall. Why? Because what did Rashbi accomplish? Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai accomplished revealing what the nature of this tzimtzum of the wall of the separation is. That the whole purpose of the separation, the whole purpose of the wall, the purpose of the tzimtzum is to undo it. That's the purpose. In other words, there are two things. There can be heaven and earth have no connection. And you can then forge a connection between heaven and earth. But then there's a negative. There's a wall. There's a concealment. God says there is no connection. But why does God say there's no connection? But why does God say that there's no connection? Why does God create the world through a tzimtzum in a way that He hides Himself from us, in a way that it's possible to deny Him? Why does He hide Himself from us so that we can deny Him, so that we could reveal Him in the lowest place? In other words, the purpose of God hiding Himself, the purpose of our capacity, of creation capacity, to deny God is what? That in that state to reveal God. So in other words, the purpose of God's concealment is to be revealed. So you could say there's a concealment, and we want to undo the concealment. We want to override it. Chassidus teaches much deeper than that. That it's not just that we have to overcome the separation. We have to overcome the separation of heaven and earth, but that the separation itself, the purpose of the separation, is to reveal God. Since the whole point of creating a world that could deny God is to have a home in that lowest realm, so why does God create the mechitza? Not because He wants the separation, but because He wants the separation taken down.
Because He wants to see what we really want it.
And that's why, where do we learn about the Lag BaOmer in the Torah? Which Lag BaOmer is all about breaking down that barrier. Where do we learn from? We learn about it from building the barrier. And why? And how? How do we do it from the barrier? Because since the barrier is what kind of barrier? In the simple narrative, in the simple meaning, it's a mountain, it's a pile of stones, a mound of stones, not a wall. What does that show? That the separation itself, the purpose of the separation is to undo the separation. Now we understand, this is an illustration of what the Rebbe was talking about earlier in the Maimer, which is that we want to see the deepest concepts of secrets of Torah. We want to be able to see them in the simple, even in the story. Here you have a story of Yaakov and Lavan, and that it's a story, it's not a law in the Torah, it's not a mitzvah, it's a story, a historical event. And within the story, a close reading of the story itself teaches us and shows us the deepest concepts, that the purpose of the tzimtzum is to be revealed. That the whole reason that that the reality that we live in is one that could deny God is to reveal God even within that reality. So that the tzimtzum itself is about revelation, not about concealment.
Okay, it's not like he's basically saying we're not like Malachim. Malachim gives you the full bench. He wants to do Malach to work himself. We have to work ourselves.
Malach is not dir b'tachteinim. It's not
he has to build a wall to make you a harvard of it to really want it. You don't really want it, you actually build the wall.
Yeah. Now we can understand why we arrive at the connection of Lag BaOmer to Eid HaGal Hazeh from Einai from the allusion to Lag BaOmer and Eid HaGal Hazeh. How so? As we said earlier, that we said what's the whole emphasis in the verse Gal Einai is not just that God revealed to us the secrets, but that we should be able to see the secrets with Einai, with our own eyes, within our own condition. That's the point of that verse. How do you get there? So, how is it possible for man to be able to see the deepest secrets of Torah through his own eyes? How is that possible? Our eyes aren't conditioned for it. So the answer is because really our eyes are conditioned to it. Where do we know this from? It comes from the teaching, the connection of Lag BaOmer with Eid HaGal Hazeh, which is what? That the whole reason our eyes can't perceive godliness is only so that ultimately we should reveal that they can. So where do we know this from? From Eid HaGal Hazeh. The whole idea of the tzimtzum, the whole idea of us being resistant to godliness, is so that we should, within that condition, reveal godliness, reveal its true nature, break down that barrier. Where is that emphasized? Where is that expressed in the pasuk Eid HaGal Hazeh? Now that we know that, now that Eid HaGal Hazeh teaches us that it's Lag BaOmer, that the purpose of tzimtzum, the purpose of concealment is revelation, now when we open up the verse Gal Einai, we say, oh, how is it possible to see with our own eyes? Because that's the ultimate purpose. But we only come to it after understanding Eid HaGal Hazeh. So we see how everything is specific, everything is meaningful, everything is exactly in order. Through studying and spreading the inner dimension of Torah, which is the Torah of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Obefrat commission is Gal Sabbateris, especially as the teachings of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Kabbalah, mysticism, are taught in Hasidism, which is the Gili Ba'if and the Isparnason, which remember we quoted earlier that the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's Torah the ultimate goal is that it should be revealed in a way of Yisparnason Mineh, which is what Havana Vasaga, it should be understood. Where is Kabbalah understood? Where is the inner dimension of Torah explained in a way that's logical and rational so it can be understood in the teachings of Chassidus? To the extent that the teachings resonate so much that they become one with the person. Just as we said that the purpose of Galein is that you should see with your eyes, meaning that it becomes something that you identify with, and it resonates with you to the point that it becomes part of your whole worldview and experience. So Zeichim, through this is Zeichim, we merit the Gilei Primis HaTorah Sheilas Lavi, to the revelation of the inner dimension of Torah that will occur when Mashiach comes. Not only will it be that it will be revealed to us the deeper secrets of Torah when Mashiach comes, but it will also be that the world will be conditioned to receive them, to perceive them. As the Rambam writes, at the end of the Rambam, that the occupation of the entire world will be only to know God, and as he says in footnote 52, what does it mean that the world's occupation? Rambam says the world's occupation will be to serve. What does it mean that your occupation, what you do for a living, that's who you are, that's your experience. That the human experience will be knowing God. Knowing God, meaning learning the deeper dimension of Torah, and that'll be in a way of asik, your occupation. As the verse says, that the world will be filled with the knowledge of God, like the earth, like the water covers the sea. With the true and complete redemption, through our righteous Mashiach, speedily, literally.